Leo B. Houston, can you explain the Japan situation in a bit more depth, please? Okay, so Japan has held artificially low interest rates on their treasury bonds for like a decade. We're talking between negative percentage and a half percent. Like it's been inside there for a decade or so. And what the Bank of Japan did, because it's such low returns, is that the Bank of Japan bought most of the bonds, and is one of the largest investors in U.S. Treasury bonds. They have like $1 trillion in U.S. Treasury bonds. Well, inflation started to increase in Japan. It was stagnant for a long time, but now it's starting to increase in Japan. And there's worries that workers are now going to seek higher pay to combat the inflation that they're experiencing. And their inflation's at like 4 or 5%. It's not quite as high as the U.S., but the U.S. is much lower than most of the world at this point. And uh, uh, with that inflation comes higher payouts, or the need for higher interest rates on the loans that the Bank of Japan puts out in those bonds, basically. That right now people can borrow, right? They can borrow money, and at really low interest rates and spend it, and that's not what you want in an economy. You want to be able to keep that spending down so the inflation doesn't go up when we've got this global supply chain problem going on. So Japan, as a way to raise funds, might dump U.S. Treasury bonds, and to shore up their own bond problems when they raise interest rates. Does that make sense? Hope that makes sense. So they got this $1 trillion U.S. bonds. They dump them, crash U.S. bonds, but then they can use that cash to pay out on the higher interest rates that they got to give out if they raise interest rates in Japan. And the other problem is that the head of the Bank of Japan is on his way out. He's a lame duck, and a new one's coming in. So like when he says things, people are like, who cares? So we don't quite know what direction they're going to go. We thought that they were going to do a rate hike like this week, and then they didn't. So people are like, that's weird. So whatever happens, it's probably going to result in the dumping of a whole bunch of U.S. bonds, which will crash the price of bonds, which will mean we'll have to raise the payout rate to entice people to buy bonds, which means the U.S. government's going to have to spend more money on interest, which means the debt ceiling is going to be more important than ever. And then we're just waiting on Congress to ignore the debt ceiling and then crash the entire global economy. So, ta-da! The aristocrats. Fritz Flap Ears, Tesla is overhyped. I think he's referring to Nicolay Tesla, like a sort of Jesus, but his Wardenclyffe Tower never worked. It could never work either. Well, it never got the chance to work because he died. So whatever he was working on, never got to know. He died. That was it. Tony, wasn't Tesla Bosnian? Well, he was born in what is today Croatia, although supposedly to Serbian family. Now, the Serbs want to claim him, the Croatians claim him, and the Croatians, I think, put him on coins now that they joined the EU, and they're now part of the single market. And the new currency issued, the new euros issued, have some of them have Nikola Tesla on them. That's sort of a to the Serbs. So there's a lot of fighting, and the people in the Balkans will fight over everything. So, they'll fight over everything. But the one beautiful thing, which I always love pointing out, one of my favorite things in the entire world is this Bruce Lee statue. So when the fighting ended in Kosovo, this town, which was like half Albanian, half Serb, they wanted to make a statue to commemorate the end of the war, and they could not agree on anything because they still hate each other's guts. So the one thing they agreed upon was they all liked Bruce Lee. So to commemorate the end of the Kosovo War, they erected a statue of Bruce Lee because that was the only thing they could agree upon. Uh, that is, I think, one of the most hilarious things in the entire entire world is the Bruce Lee statue in Kosovo to commemorate the end of the war. It's beautiful. Kung Fu brings everyone together.